What the hell? It's JLL, your Gnostic teacher on the internet. I'm here on the 7th of January 2018 in the early hours of the evening. My objective in this recording is to talk to you about Sophia's pet species, the anthropos. In doing so, I'm going to delve into the dicey subject of how humanity, to use that horribly overworked and cliched term, is divinely designed for violence. Now, this talk is a bit of a rambling prelude to another one that follows immediately this evening. Another upload in the series on the Charlotte working. And the purpose of the upload that follows is to give you the TI. Do you know what TI stands for? Well, if you look it up on the internet, I come up on one site which gives you 22 different definitions of TI, Texas Instruments, tourist industry. If you look in the urban dictionary, urban legend dictionary, it means, well, hold on, totally insane. I like that. I haven't used that. I'm going to use that reference now. Hey, she's really TI. Totally insane. But the TI coming your way in the talk that follows this one is what some of you have been waiting for, isn't it? I refer to the use of TI, that abbreviation, in the genre of psyops and psychological warfare. But even so, that's only an allusion. I shall make an allusion to TI. But in the context of Gaian tantric magic, or Gaian sorcery, if you will permit such a term, in that context, TI has a particular and intricate spin. But for right now, in preparing you to receive the TI, you've been waiting for that, I need to offer, I feel a responsibility to offer just a little bit of a teeny-weeny briefing on the subject of violence and how it applies to the Charlotte working. Now, first of all, there are so many things that I could say and different angles from which to approach the subject. I will attempt to be as cogent and direct as I can. First of all, I would like to point out that killing someone is not necessarily an act of violence. To be precise, it is an act using the application of violent force, but it is not necessarily a violent act. For instance, if you get in a fight with someone and your life is at stake and you have a knife, maybe the aggressor has a knife as well. Someone attacks you and it so happens that you have a knife, and in the process of defending yourself, there's a tremendous physical scuffle. You're both on the ground, you're both tussling with each other, trying to choke each other, and you stab the aggressor 16 times, finally in the throat, and he's dead, or she's dead. Women can be very aggressive too, and they have a particular form of violence through which they operate. That's violence. I mean, that's bloody, messy, ugly violence. But if, for instance, you have on hand something like my little handheld device for tweeting, my little Tweety Bird, which is a Magnum 44 Desert Eagle. And if I tweet you with my Tweety Bird, my Desert Eagle, right between the eyes, then you're dead, and there's no violence involved at all. You see, it doesn't hurt someone to kill them, necessarily, depending on how you do it. If you shoot someone point blank, if you happen to be lucky enough to have a handgun in your possession, everyone in the world, what am I going to say? Not has the right, because rights are bullshit. Everyone in the world who takes responsibility for being a human animal needs to know how to handle weapons that deliver lethal force. The delivery of lethal force is a violent act. The Charlotte working involves a delivery of lethal force through magic in that manner, okay? That should be clear enough by now. But it's not a violent act in that there is no exercise of overt violence upon the target. You must be able to distinguish the application of violent intent from crude and flagrant demonstrations of violence. Again, let me give you an example. If I'm in a bar and I get in a dangerous situation and someone threatens my life, I can engage with them in a violent fight. Or I can just pull out my Magnum 44 Desert Eagle and tweet them a little message, which is not violent. It's the application of violent intent in a specific and particular act, period. That's all. So I ask you to bear that consideration in mind. I am not advocating violence, which is probably one of the 5 most wrongly used and misunderstood terms on this planet. I am not advocating any kind of act of violence. In fact, I'm advocating an elegant kill by the direction of violent intent, but in the absence of physical agency, APA. In other words, no known or recognized instrument such as a knife, a gun, a bow gun, a spear gun has to be employed in committing this particular act of termination of a human life. So there you go. That's my intro. How am I doing? By the way, I just want to say that I don't know who's listening to these talks, but I'm sure some people who don't have my best interest in mind may be online. And the thousands, somewhat among the thousands and thousands of censors said to be employed by Google and YouTube and Facebook. I don't know if I believe that story or not, but okay, they're said to be employed. Some among those wretched dupes and minions of the global perpetrators might find what I'm saying now offensive. After all, I am advocating murder. However, I would point out, once again, I have not chosen any target, and I have not named any target, have I? So what's offensive about advocating murder if no one is named as the object of the murderous deed? Well, you see, there's a difference between a murderous deed, a murderous act, like strangling someone to death physically, and the murderous intent that produces that act. And I ask you to take that distinction on board. So what I am doing is showing the world how to gather, ground, and direct murderous intent. That's all. Now that may be found to be offensive by some parties, and there's a possibility that the channel could be shut down, it could be limboed, it could be showed, blah, blah, blah. In any case, I've just posted a page on mythhistory.org, linked in the description, and hitherto, you will find everything relevant to the Charlotte working linked from that page. So, in proceeding, I strongly advise you to be crystal clear on what's happening here. There is a lethal weapon to be employed in this action, in this transmission of murderous intent. The lethal weapon, however, is not a spear gun or a knife or even a Magnum 44 Desert Eagle. It's a cording. It's a triantra. How do you like that? It's a three-dimensional design constructed of string strung in the limbs of a tree. That is the lethal weapon of this murderous strike. So be really clear on that. And I ask you, in the 10 days now ensuing, before that strike is performed, around the 16th or 17th of January, I ask you to repeat the routine in your mind. There are 3 dynamic components of this event and 2 aspects. The 3 components are 1, the performance of the cording ritual, 2, the performance of the 16-strong Calica support team, who are known to me personally, in the flesh, and 3, your performance, your participation as the ground force. Those are the 3 components of this event, and the 2 aspects are the performance of the event itself, involving all of these 3 parties. There are no passive witnesses. And secondly, the disclosure of the event concurrent with its performance. Memorize that routine. You are like a Marine. You are like a Delta task force about to proceed on a mission. And before you go out on that mission, before you make the first step, you have to be locked and loaded. And you have to rehearse this routine in your mind so that you know it as well as you know the routine of making toast. Claro? Vale? Do you comprehend? Now I'm going to be short and precise, believe it or not, in briefing you on this topic of violence. I have some corrections to make regarding previous statements that I've made. For instance, some years back, I initiated a series of essays on metahistory.org under the label of right action. And I wrote some things about open season on predators. Now I have to correct some factors of what I wrote at that time, and I'll do that probably, in some commentaries that come through in the coming days. Bear in mind that between now and the 16th or 17th of January, when you will be on vigil with me for the performance of this cording, there's only about 5 or 6 more talks to unload, to upload, to prepare you for the event. Everything else is commentary, so I may offer commentary here and there as I see fit, or I might just sit down in front of this ridiculous little golf ball microphone and just ramble to you about where I'm at and what's going through my mind. So there will be some commentary coming, but the essential briefings can be comprised now in 4 or 5 uploads. So I may go back at some point and review this material I posted on Right Action. Also, I'd have you know that I did an interview with Red Ice. I can't remember when it was, 2012 maybe. And it has in the title of the interview, The Riddle of Violence. Now, there's a problem with this interview. You know, the Red Ice interviews are posted in a public hour and then generally in a members-only hour, part 1 and part 2. So in part 1 of that talk, I don't say anything about violence. I talk about the Gaian navigation experiment. So you can go and find that talk on YouTube. It's carried by a whole bunch of channels, not just Red Ice. But it's misleading because I don't even get to the subject of violence. If you're a member, you can listen to part 2, but it seems to me, upon reviewing it, or upon having had it reviewed by an ally, that I don't really get to the point there either. I mean, what's my problem in getting to the point, right? Ah, alas and alack. Well, the riddle of violence is a subject that I love. It's dear to my heart as a warrior, a Gnostic, and a shaman. And so, what I'm going to say now, all that I have to say about the essential truth of the Rome regarding their violent tendencies. Doing so, I'm going to fulfill the promise that I made a couple of talks back. Remember that I said, hey, world, John Lash is proposing an open source demonstration of Gaian Tantric sorcery, and as the first example of the efficacy of his method, he's proposing a violent act of murder. Well, hold on, why is he doing that? You know, why would that be the first proof of concept of Gaian Tantric magic? When supposing that Gaian Tantric magic, planetary Tantra, is a practice that affords many, many forms of magic, many forms of dynamical, intentional practice that could be directed toward healing, could be directed toward elevation of the human spirit, if you will, could be directed toward many, many aspects of correction in our world. I mean, why concentrate coming out of the gates on this particular act of lethal force? Why? Why is that the first proof that Gaian sorcery works? Why does that have to be the first proof? Well, I'll tell you, my friends, that it has to be the first proof on her terms, because you are designed on her terms. You are designed on the terms of the Aeonic Mother, Sophia, and her consort, Thelete. This is what the sacred narrative teaches you, isn't it? And so the first proof that you accept the terms upon which you are designed from the galactic core is the appropriate way to introduce this magic. The Rome, you and I, are the magical children of the wisdom goddess. How many times have I said that? Do you like that term? I find it beautiful and poetic. I find it really appealing. You and I are the magical children of the wisdom goddess, the planetary animal mother. How then do you and I prove that we are? We prove it by exercising that magic. And how do we exercise that magic in the first instance? We prove it by committing a kill. But why a kill? Have you wondered about that? Why would it be that? Why can't it be something positive and uplifting and healing? Why does it have to be a kill, a killing spell that demonstrates the veracity of Gaian Tantric sorcery? Well, in order to elaborate on that question, which is indeed a deep and daunting question, isn't it? I'm just going to heed the obvious. Listen while I talk about what is manifestly obvious about the experience of the human species on Earth. First, you are embedded in an environment, a biosphere, a habitat, with millions of other animal species. And what do you see as you observe the behavior of these animal species? Well, it is manifestly obvious that predation is the primary mode of subsistence among these myriad species. Every species, every living organism, from the level of the amoeba and the bacteria up to the level of the greatest land animals, the most massive land animals, such as the blue whale or the gray whale, exhibit predation. What does the gray whale do when it swims up and down the coast of California? After birthing the calves and nursing them in the lagoons of Baja California, swims on a perilous route all the way up to the cool, frigid waters of Alaska in order to devour enormous quantities of plankton and microscopic creatures living in the water. That's predation. You are alive as a human creature, a human animal, in a food chain. You're part of a food chain. It's a fact. It's a manifest fact. Now, I'm not going to argue with people who refuse to be carnivores. That's another subject. And that has no relevance here to the manifest fact that all animal life around you, whether it be at the bacterial level or in the level or at the level of the mobile, four-legged and two-legged animals, involves predation. It involves seeking prey and eating the food that is killed as prey. So the grizzly bear eats salmon. What do the salmon eat? What do beavers eat? What do raptors eat? The peregrine falcon, the hawk, the eagle, the vulture. Well, the vulture eats carrion. That's a special category which is deeply beloved to the heart of sorcerers. But you get the picture. Whether you like it or not, you can be vegan, you can be vegetarian, you can be a fucking breatharian. I don't care. The fact is that the human species is embedded in an environment that is absolutely rampant with predation and carnivorous activity. one species devouring another. Now, it's often said that the human animal stands at the top of the food chain, and in a way, that's true. I believe that in my talk on the riddle of violence, I elaborated on that point in a certain manner, so I'll try to reprise what I said. I said, look, heed the obvious. Well, I didn't say that at that time, did I? Because that's the watchword for now and for the Charlotte working. But isn't it obvious that you can name thousands of animals that prey on other species? And when you do so, isn't it obvious that you have to include the human animal as the master predator? Is extremely, I don't like the word important. It is essential to your observation of life on this planet to admit that predation occurs massively everywhere. But at the same time, it's equally essential, equally necessary to note that predation occurs within limits. So, for instance, let's look at the special category of the great felines. These are, without question, the supreme and paramount predators on this planet. The predatory felines. When I say their names, it is to me like reciting a litany of prayer. Cheetah, jaguar, leopard, lion, puma. To me, that's like a litany of prayer. It's like naming the names of saints. And as you will learn, especially those predatory felines who have the teardrop markings, these are especially precious in the practice of Gaian sorcery. And when you look at these predatory animals, let's look at the cheetah, for instance. Fastest animal on the planet. 70, 75 miles an hour. Chasing down a gazelle, an ibex. Some beautiful herd animal of the Serengeti. The cheetah kills with elegance and beauty. The cheetah kills within an extremely limited range of prey. One thing that distinguishes the anthropos animal, the anthropine species, from all the other species, is that all the others exercise predation within a very narrow range of prey. The cheetah, the lion, the cougar, the puma, the tiger, they do not prey on every single animal that comes their way. In certain conditions of stress or difficulty, they will go outside their predetermined range of prey. Bengal tigers will prey on human beings. This is a very well-known legend. Many books have been written about it. But human animals are not within the range of the prey, the natural range of the prey of Bengal tigers. If they don't have to prey on humans, hunt them down and kill them and eat them, they won't. You see? Well, what about Sophia's pet species, the Rome, the anthropos? I use that term in a jocular but also affectionate manner. Compare it to the idea of a pet student. The teacher has a pet student. Sophia has a pet species. That's you, the Rome, the anthropos. Look at us. What is the range of the predation of the human species? Well, it is fucking unlimited. Not only does the anthropine species animal prey on every single conceivable other animal species on the planet, but it also preys upon itself. That is intra-species predation. Well, you don't find intra-species predation among the cougars, among the cheetahs, among the jaguars, among the great feline predators. You don't find it among the raptor birds, the eagle, the falcon, the hawk, the owl. You don't find the owl exercising interspecies predation. Owls may fight for food. Some hawks will fight for food in midair. And it's a fantastic ballet to watch. A ballet of violence, of hawks fighting over food in midair. But they don't go outside the range of their prey. Well, by contrast, the range of the prey of Sophia's pet species is absolutely staggering, isn't it? Staggering. So, what to make of that? That is manifestly obvious. Don't argue about it. It doesn't matter. Don't say it could be some other way. Don't say we don't have to eat other animals. It's irrelevant. Those arguments do not apply to this particular scenario. What can you conclude here from what is so manifestly obvious? I said in that Red Ice interview, I seem to recall saying, quote, "The human animal is divinely designed to excel in violence," end quote. I did say that. I think it's somewhere in the members only part 2 of the interview. In any case, it doesn't matter. I'm saying it now. Repeat. Listen clearly. The anthropine species, the human animal, is divinely designed to excel in violence, end quote. To excel in violence means to be accomplished in the use of violent force, including lethal force, but in an excellent way, in a way that excels the use of such force in the behavior of all other animal creatures. Are you following me? So when you excel in the expression of a force, it does not mean that you exceed in the expression of that force. It does not mean that you use that power that you have, that capacity, in this case, predation, the capacity to kill. It does not mean that you use it recklessly or excessively. On the contrary, it means that you use it elegantly and selectively. That's what it means to excel in the use of violent force. Why is the anthropine species special in the eyes of the Aeon Sophia as her genomic design, her genomic innovation, the singularity? How does it happen that you are endowed with this capacity? Well, it so happens that the success of the divine experiment on earth depends on you mastering that exceptional capacity. That is why it is the first test. But that's not the only reason why. And I prefer to speak of so that rather than because. So here goes, and here's the punchline. You are divinely designed to excel in violence, in the expression of violent force, so that you can take responsibility for that force in a way that no other animal can. You are so designed in that way so that you can take responsibility for using predatory and lethal force in a skillful and selective way. Those are the terms of the planetary animal mother. To use it in a selective, elegant, skillful, and limited way. All other creatures, including those sublime predatory felines who are the model for the killing magic of the Charlotte working, who are the exemplars of this killing magic. It so happens that those animals are assigned by nature, by the Aeonic Mother, a limited range of prey. You are not. Therefore, you must assign to yourself the range of prey. And you must decide, you must choose how to act on the basis of the deepest moral responsibility of a human animal. What to kill and why. But to avoid the responsibility of killing makes you a failure on her terms. And that is such. And you can argue with that point to the end of this world. I don't care. I speak to you as a shaman from the depth of my anthropine savvy. And that is the truth. That is the truth of the human condition that has to be faced to change the human condition. So I conclude with that remark. And I am happy to be able to clarify this point, which I have not made clear in my talks and writings until today, as I live and breathe here upon the earth with the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter at the fulcrum of the scales. By accepting the responsibility to kill selectively within a limited range, because Sophia herself does not predesign the predatory range of the human animal. You get me? By accepting that responsibility, you do two things in her eyes. One, you show that you accept in humility that you are just another animal in a carnivorous, predatory habitat. Think about it. Why did she put the Rome in a food chain? Why did she put this species, her pet species, the central subject of this divine experiment, in a predatory and carnivorous habitat? When you claim the responsibility, when you make the commitment to the Charlotte working, you accomplish a supreme act of self-recognition. You recognize in humility that you are just another animal, although an exceptional one, not superior, exceptional. You are the animal of Sophia's singularity. And you accept that you must take responsibility for the way you are designed as species. You are designed to excel in the application of violent force. So own it. Own it. And learn how to master it. That is the honorable and courageous way to fulfill what you like to call your humanity. So on that note, I'll leave you for now. Upcoming is the TI and everything that comes with it. So hold to correction and heed the obvious. There's your best chance for a future worth living, not just for yourself, but for the species to which you belong.